boat show is usually made in Italy, but right now we're in France. And we're about to try out an American boat. Built by one of the most famous boatyards in the world, Sea Ray. It's been said that they build their yachts and motorboats very well. So let's have a look at this model, the 400 Sundancer.
Lo scafo è lungo 40 piedi, poco più di 12 metri, ed è la barca ideale per una famiglia.
It's 40 foot long, which is a little over 12 meters, so it's ideal for a family or two couples. The profile isn't bad either. I really like the slant of the deckhouse on the cockpit at the stern, and the shape of the window is interesting, no? On board though, there's something more important to highlight. The bridge, for one, is all on one level. The dunnage in the living area has been designed so you don't slip. The cockpit is asymmetrical, so the sofa can be bigger. And then there's the table, which can be lowered to become a sun deck. On the left side there's an armchair, but you could also have an ice maker there. This space is protected by a shade which covers the whole sun deck. The platform is submergible, but differs from the norm as it has a ladder too. The kitchen at the stern spreads out to take up more space, which is good, no? I hope you can see the mooring cleats at different levels. They're there so you can moor up to any pier and dock. In the past you would have needed to adapt American boats for the Mediterranean market, adding cushions at the bow for example. But now they come as part of the design, so they're perfectly integrated, part of the deck. Have you seen how high the rail is? That's worth noting. If you buy a hardtop, you'll end up wanting an open top so that you can be closer to the natural world. But with these windows and the roof that opens, the Sundancer 400 becomes an open. There are two sofas and you can admire the panorama even if you're sitting down. You can even put in an extra berth here on the main deck. And if you open the door at the stern, you can see just how many guests this boat can accommodate, inside and out. The living area is really spacious, as some of the technical elements, like the electronics for example, are on a different system. The kitchen is compact but has everything you need. To avoid damage to the sofa, there's this protection. To ventilate the cooking area, you can open this sliding window. Below deck there are 5 berths in 2 cabins and options for either 1 or 2 bathrooms. With just the 1 bathroom, the main bedroom can have a bigger wardrobe, but if 4 of you are going to be cruising, perhaps it's better to have 2 bathrooms. 2 berths can be joined together instead of the 3rd bed, and you can have a chest of drawers. At the bow though, there's the main cabin, very large with high ceilings. The headboard matches the side padding, and underneath the bed there are 2 deep drawers. The dressing table with its 4 Polaroid mirrors lights up. In this model, as well as the day bathroom, there's a dedicated bathroom for the main bedroom, which could be a big wardrobe if you wanted. I like how they've designed this. You can reach everything easily.
Accanto al posto di pilotaggio c'è un finestrino molto comodo.
Beside the driver's seat there's a window, great for shouting orders out to whoever steers the boat, but it's useful in terms of keeping the driver's area cool too.
Per le manovre non dovete preoccuparvi perché c'è il comando joystick.
In terms of maneuvering, you don't have to worry as there's the joystick, whatever method of propulsion you choose.
In plancia ci sono due grandi schermi e sono...
On the bridge, there are two big screens perfectly aligned for the pilot and co-pilot, so either can check something. Maybe one will be checking the revs and the other consumption.
Questo scafo può essere
This
equipaggiato...
boat can have different engines and propulsion systems. For example, you can choose turbo diesel engines from 370 to 480 horsepower with V-drive propulsion.
Andiamo ad andare...
Let's go check out the machine room. By raising the whole cockpit, you can get to all the machines easily. The electrics generate 10 kilowatts of power, so you can use what you want, when you want.
Un po' più di 12 metri di lunghezza e un po' più di 4 metri di
A
larghezza.
little longer than 12 meters, a little wider than 4 meters, and a 17-degree angle at the bow, better than other boat makers have chosen for this type of boat.
La potenza è tanta.
There's a lot of power, 960 horsepower in fact, so it planes very easily.
Lo scafo entra in planata...
At about 12 knots actually, and the pull-up doesn't block the visuals.
Il vento è molto forte oggi.
The wind is very strong today, whipping up the sea to these 60 to 70 centimeter high waves.
Proviamo...
Let's try getting up to cruising speed.
Ok, ho raggiunto una zona di mare dove le onde sono più alte.
Okay, I've got a place where the waves are higher so I can really try out the boat, which will need a little of the flaps.
Stiamo navigando a 22 nodi di velocità.
Right now we're going 22 knots an hour, consuming 6 liters an hour. The engines are revving at 2,700 revs a minute. Here, the waves are even bigger, with white caps on top of the waves that must be over a meter, and we're up to 25 knots, but fuel consumption has stayed the same, even if the revs have gone up to 3,000 a minute. I want to see how it handles itself crossing the waves now then.
Con una carena così profonda.
With such a deep hull, it holds the route perfectly, though obviously it's more sensitive to variations.
Stiamo navigando a 30 nodi.
We're sailing at 30 knots now and consuming a little over 6 meters a mile. 30 knots with these waves. Quite unbelievable.
Beh, è ovvio che con
Well,
mare e
it's
vento
obvious that with this sea and with these waves hitting the sides, there's a little rolling, but it's quite soft. What I'm wondering though is if you can push it to full throttle in these conditions. I bet you want to know too, don't you? Okay, let's go for it. Look at the sea. Those waves. Full throttle and we're up to 3,200 revs a minute and 31 knots. But if the conditions were better, I think we could go another knot faster still. If you've watched this test because you're thinking of buying a new boat, however you tend to be disappointed with new things, you can stop right here. This is a 40-footer, but it has everything you need to enjoy yourself, to sleep over on board and to sail safely. Even when conditions aren't great, it is a Sea Ray after all.